Ooh, we're streaming live. Yes, on HOGGOUT. I'm loving it, loving it. We got a special guest on today, but we're going to go through firstly a quick look at Australia, New Zealand. There's a couple of highlights there I want to talk about. England and India. Obviously, we're going to talk about that and some milestones. So they're the three quick subjects before we get to our special guest. So, okay, let's roll that bumper. Have a little bit of music. Looking at that news reporter, I've got to get that news reporter back. I really enjoyed doing that. There was a bit of a HOGGOUT there. I don't think that went down well with everyone over in India, but I was just trying to do something a little different there. But let's get into Australia versus New Zealand. Australia absolutely thumped New Zealand in the first test match. And I think it's going to be the same again in the second test match down there. I just think Australia are a little bit too strong. They've got too much depth, but New Zealand are always fighters. And New Zealand, this is a very important game for them because they're second on the World Test Championship. If they beat Australia, that is a big milestone. That will help boost their percentage points just a little bit further away from Australia. But then they've got, who have they got coming up? They've got India for 3 tests on Indian home soil. That's going to be tough. That's why it's important for them to beat Australia. And then they've got Sri Lanka for 2 tests in Sri Lanka. And then they've got England coming down there. So New Zealand really need to win this test match to stay afloat in that World Test Championship as they go on and tour around the subcontinent, where I think they're going to struggle over there a little bit as well. Now, make sure you get your questions in. We'll get to them in about 10, 15 minutes, and I really enjoy answering those questions. Now, I just want to talk on a bit about Australia. Australia have always had a little bit of chat about their opening combination over the last couple of last year and a half because of David Warner retiring, and they went with Steve Smith because they wanted to get Cameron Green back in the team, and Steve Smith wanted a new challenge. He wanted to go up the order and open. So far, it's working, and I think it's a good thing for Steve Smith. And I think it's just going to reinvigorate his energy towards Test cricket. But Cameron Green, let's get a little picture up there of Cameron Green, the all-rounder from my part of the world, Western Australia. He's a bit like Jacques Kallis. I'm not going to put him in the Jacques Kallis category as yet, but he can bowl. He can bat in the top order. So bowling out 140 plus, which Jacques Kallis does, batting out the top order as Jacques Kallis does, and fielding in the gully region, he's a very good catcher of the ball, like Jacques Kallis. So there's so many similarities there. And batting out number 4, that 100 against New Zealand when Australia were under pressure the other day, really defined Cameron Green and has stated to the world that Australia have made the right move in Smith going to the opening position and Cameron Green coming in at number 4. And it's just great to see him alive and well now. The only thing with that, with Australia moving forward, they just got to make sure they monitor his workload with the ball and they don't overuse him. They just use him in short spurts like the likes of Jacques Kallis. And you look at Ben Stokes as well, who's playing over there against India at the moment, because they went to him too often with the ball. Now his knee's gone and they've lost that all-round ability in the middle order. And then the next guest that we've got who complimented Cameron Green and took a little bit of pressure off Cameron Green in that first innings was Mitchell Marsh. And this is a good little photo of Mitchell Marsh bowling. So Mitchell Marsh coming in at number 6, he's playing that aggressive style, that style that we call Bazball, but I think he's a little bit more aggressive than that. He really wants to take the game on. And when Australia were in trouble the other day, the ball was moving around a little bit. He played those attacking shots. There were some great shots off a good length where he found the boundary. All of a sudden, New Zealand bowlers had to find something a little different, and they chased the game. They had to change their plans to Mitchell Marsh. And what did that do at the other end? It enabled Cameron Green to relax. So with the fast bowlers of Australia and those 2 all-rounders that Australia have got there, and then you've also got Head in between them, those two in the batting with the left arm aggressive style and the right arm off spin. Australia have got plenty of depth in both bowling and batting departments. The only two that really need to lift with the batting department there are Marnus Labuschagne and Alex Carey with the gloves. New Zealand, they just have to find a little bit more resilience with the bat and try and wear Australia down. So if New Zealand get to bat first, they've got to make sure they nearly bat for 2 days to try and bat Australia out of the game. Otherwise, Australia will go away with the game. Now, let's go to England versus India. Is Boomer going to be back? He's in the squad. That's one thing that I'll be looking forward to. It's going to be a flat track, it sounds like, up there in Dharamsala. And I don't know why you're playing at this time of the year up in Dharamsala. It's about 19 degrees and less up there. It's the coldest time there. I'd like to see it a little bit later in the year where it's a little bit warmer. I've been looking at the Weather Channel there. So that's going to play in England's favour a little bit. But really, if you look at the series so far, England needs to win this test match to stay in the competition. If they don't, they are definitely out of the World Test Championship final or a chance of playing in the final this year. But if we look through the series, the dominance of Bazball out the top, Gill coming in out 3, and Rohit Sharma, the top 3 have really dominated against the England bowlers. So that's been the difference in the game if you compare it to the England top order as well. And plus, Bazball is scoring at a quicker rate than any other batsman there. So he's getting runs on the board in a timely fashion and being able to give the opportunity for the Indian bowlers to bowl the opposition out with plenty of time in hand, but you don't need that over in India. But then you look at the bowling department as well, the spinners of India versus England spinners. It's not so much the average that I'm worried about. It's the strike rate. The Indian bowlers are getting wickets in a quicker time than England spinners. So let's get those Indian spinners up there, the Indian photos up there if you've got them there, okay. But that's where the difference of the game is. Yes, you want to control the game with a little bit of economy. That's fine. But strike rate is what counts, getting wickets in a quick time, and that's why India are well on top of England. So I don't think England are going to win this final test match. I think India are going to run away with it and extend their lead out the top of the table. And one other thing that I like to say is India came from behind after a first innings deficit in that fourth test match and won the test. That is very difficult thing to do. As a stats I said last week, if you're leading on the first innings, generally you've got a high percentage of around about 60-65% chance of winning the test match. To win from behind on the second test match is quite difficult. England did it in the first test match in Hyderabad. India did it in the last test match. And that is good for the game that someone's come from behind to win. Now, just quickly, we'll go through some milestones before we get to the special guest who's going to ask us some questions. And the milestones are Southee from New Zealand. 100 test matches, brilliant stuff from the stalwart there. Medium pacer, swings the ball, he just hits a good line and length, and he has bowled a lot with Trent Boult where they produced a really good combination down there. But I just love the way that he's been resilient, been able to have longevity in the game. He's played a lot of T20 cricket as well as one-day cricket, but play 100 test matches as a fast bowler is an exceptional effort. And for fast bowlers out there, you just got to look out Southee, the way that he's looked after his body and to stay on the park with limited injury. It's a sensational performance. And really, I hope he gets Pfeiffer against Australia just to celebrate this milestone. So good luck in the test match against Australia, Mr. Southee. And for you, I hope you get 10 wickets in a match, 2 5s in both innings, and you bowl New Zealand to victory for you on a personal level. But I'm still going for Australia. The next one is Bairstow. That I really enjoyed his time out in international cricket. He's really got a dodgy left leg, I think it is now, where he broke his leg. You can see him running around in the field now. There's a little bit of a hobble there, but I just love his endurance. He reminds me a bit of a Rahul in a sense. Rahul hasn't played as many games, but he's been asked to keep, he's been asked to field, he's been asked to bat in different positions throughout his career. And that versatility it really shows that he's a team player and he puts the team first. And he's one player that I would really love in any team that I have because of that durability, versatility, and also the way that he puts team first. So well done to Johnny Bairstow on that, and hopefully he has success. And then the next one is Mitchell Starc. I just want to congratulate him on his 300 wickets, and I also should be congratulating Ashwin as well. And I'll just talk about Ashwin after Starc. But Starc, there were rumours about him being soft early on in his career. He got told to harden up by a legend of the game on the commentary box, but also a coach or two. He took that advice on board and he really worked at his bowling, but he also worked on understanding his body. So fast bowlers out there, it's a very tough art. And you go through that process of knowing when your body is sore and it's putting you in the red light for injury, or when your body is sore and it's more of a mental thing because things aren't going right out in the middle, or it's a tough day and you're bowling out that back end of the day. He's been able to work that out. The strike rate that he's got, I think it's the fourth best of any bowler that has got 300 wickets plus. And, you've got the likes of Malcolm Marshall there, Dale Steyn, awesome bowler. To be up in the likes like that, it just shows the calibre of Mitchell Starc. And I really hope that he finishes off his career with a very good IPL this year. I think he should have that reward of being able to just cut back on international cricket and then go and play the T20 circuit to make a little bit more cash. Ashwin, just want to say something about him. The amount of wickets that he's got in Test cricket, 500 the other day. He's an awesome bowler. He thinks about the game. He works on the game. And he's someone, as me being a spinner, I look at him and I would have learned a lot from him through my career. So young players out there that are potential off spinners, really study the way that Ashwin goes about it. He's one of those bowlers that just doesn't bowl the same thing all the time. He's got the cannonball that turns away. Yes, he's got all those variations, but look at the way that he uses the crease. That's both around the wicket and over the wicket. He's close to the stumps. He's wide of the stumps. He bowls in between that wide and closeness to the stumps. Then he comes around the wicket and does the same thing and changes the angle. But he also manipulates the field as well. He's a thinking bowler. So as a bowler, you've got to captain yourself, and that's what Ashwin does. So youngsters out there, please, when you're bowling, learn to captain yourself. Don't rely on the captain to make the decisions. And coaches out there that might be listening as well, please encourage your bowlers to think on their feet, because that is the most important thing for a bowler to have longevity and a very enterprising career at the top level. Righty-O, let's get on to our special guest, please. Okay, can we get him up on the screen? A little bit of a drum roll. Roland. Yes, here we go. Roland John Fernandez. How are you going, Roland?
I'm doing great, Brad. How are you?
I'm going very well, mate. Very well. Now, I tried to get that done within 6 minutes, but I had to go through those milestones, and we can talk about India and England right now, because I know you've got some questions, but you've also got some questions about Australia and New Zealand coming forward. I haven't heard all of the questions. You've just given me a bit of a taste of one or two. I don't really like being asked or talking about the questions before someone comes on, because I like to be surprised and answer it how I feel at that particular moment, because then it's more authentic. But Roland, we'll get to you at the back. Get your first question to me, please.
Okay, so since you mentioned Australia and New Zealand, let's go on to the Australian side. You
Yep.
mentioned how Cummins, has emphasized a lot on Lyon's importance for the team, and we can't imagine an Australian team without Nathan Lyon at this point. So, how long do you think can Nathan Lyon prolong his career, and what advice would you give him, considering you yourself made a comeback into the Australian team in your later 30s, I'd say so?
There are two bits of advice that I would give to Nathan Lyon. One, play as long as you possibly can, and that's look after yourself, because once you're retired, it's very hard to come back. And two, while he's coming out the back end of his career, enjoy it, play each test match as though it's your last, but start to work on life after cricket. Where do you want to go with life after cricket? The players these days are making a lot of money, but for the mental health side of things and for the longevity of your life, you don't want to be stagnant. You want the mind ticking over, and you want to be busy with other things. So those are the two things that I'd really tell Nathan Lyon to work on out the back end of his career. And I think Nathan Lyon is very important to the Australian team. When he's not getting wickets and he's bowling on flat surfaces, he's able to tie an end up and allow the fast bowlers to operate with more rest out the other end. That's very important. And the other thing is, when conditions are suited to him, and I was watching him the other day against New Zealand, it was really turning. He didn't chase the wickets. He just went through the processes that he normally does and just concentrates on bowling the best delivery he can bowl at that moment and keep applying the pressure. Because if the conditions are in your favour, you can get belted very quickly by chasing wickets and not bowling to the team plan and not bowling to apply the pressure. Because the more dot balls or the harder it is to score for the batsman, you've got to make sure that they've got to play a shot that's not an easy shot to score runs. So you don't want to give that easy half volley away. Pat Cummins, I've been really impressed with Pat Cummins. I was disappointed with the way that Australia got rid of Justin Langer as the coach, but Justin Langer was the perfect coach through that particular period of time. Pat Cummins came out in the media and said that we needed a new direction, and Justin Langer had set that process up, and it was probably time for a little bit of a change out that time. And the way that Pat Cummins has handled it, led the troops, and made sure that all that hype, all that hostility about Justin Langer leaving, he kept the troops on song, on side, and focused to continue some success. And that shows a true leader. So there's two true leaders there. Justin Langer, he utilised his strengths in a moment where Australian cricket was slightly in a bit of crisis. They needed to turn things around with their reputation and the way they played on the field. And then when the time was right, the players were able to start to lead themselves because of Justin Langer's ability to help them grow as people to become leaders. So, and Pat Cummins has done that, and he's leading the team well. He's a great ambassador for the game. Good question, Roll. Did I answer that? Anything else?
Definitely. No? Totally agree with you. And as you mentioned, Pat Cummins is a leader. We know he's just been appointed as the captain of Sunrisers and IPL as well. Do you think he'll be able to, replicate his Australian success here? Because for Australia, he's been doing well in the longer formats. But in terms of T20s, I don't think he's established himself yet. Even in the recent series, Mitch Marsh was captaining. So what do you think? Yeah. How do you think he'll perform in IPL as a captain?
Last year you had Markram as captain, wasn't it? Yep. Down there at Sunrisers. I think Markram is a very good thinker of the game. The only thing with Pat Cummins coming in to captain the team, and he hasn't been around that group for long, and he's got to learn the franchise. I think there's going to be a transition period there, but I think Pat Cummins is strong enough and mature enough now to be able to counteract that. And I think that's going to be a good acquisition for Sunrisers Hyderabad. I think he will do a lot of study before he gets down there and work out what he thinks the best combinations are for a playing 11 and how he would utilise that 11. And then he'll go and meet the coaches that have been around the system for a little bit longer and discuss what their thoughts are as well. And then he'll combine both and work together to come out with the best plan. And I think that's what you've got to do as a leader, especially when you're going to a T20 franchise or any new team. It doesn't matter whether you're a coach or captain, but if you're going into a new environment, you've got to be going in there with your ideas. But when you get into that environment, you don't want to throw that straight onto everyone else. You've got to try and get within the culture that they've got now. understand that quickly, and then just try and just put your little touch on it ever so slightly, because you don't want to go in there and go, right, this is the way we're doing it. This is how we do it in Australia. This is how I've done it with the Sydney Sixers. You don't want to be doing that, because you've lost the team already, because each individual has got different backgrounds. They've got different culture backgrounds as well. So you want to make sure that you're bringing everyone on board, and that's where Pat Cummins will be absolutely brilliant. And that's why I don't think the transition will take that long.
Yep, makes sense, because the team is in a transition period, and similar to the Australian national team as well, where they were not really in a very good stable state when he took over. So I think
Yeah.
that we can draw some similarities between the two cases. And
Exactly right. You just nailed something there too. You've got a young team. That's the thing about cricket. It's not about the best team on the park. It's about having the best connection within your squad. If you've got a great connection amongst the whole squad, all of a sudden the environment is thriving. Everyone's backing each other, and then when it comes to game day, all of a sudden everyone knows that they've got their back. And if you've got that culture in there where everyone's on the same page and everyone's helping each other out, which Pat Cummins will bring to the party down there, all of a sudden your chances of success in the tournament go from there to there. Because you're able to help each other through those tough times. Doesn't matter about experience. It doesn't matter about skill level as such. There's a certain skill that you've got to get to, but it's about how the team operates when you need to do something for your team. Are you willing to sacrifice your averages for the betterment of the team? Are you willing to forgo your ego or your performance for the betterment of the team when the conditions are conducive to or help another player with his strengths in the team? So good point there.
exactly. And yeah, coming to my next question, it's as you know, a lot of noise has been made regarding the emphasis on playing domestic cricket. You might have heard the BCCI not
Yep.
giving out contracts to Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan recently. How important do you think it is to play domestic cricket during their international breaks? Like, do you think it has personally benefited you, or would you like that time off, to spend it with your family, or to regain your mental health and stuff? So, what do you think is
Um,
important?
well, for me on a personal front, the more cricket I played, the better it was for my health. So I remember going over to play county cricket. Hardly ever trained because you've got so many games going on out at one time through the week. So you really only had 1 or 2 days where you had off to be able to work on your game at some stages. I found that great, because if you had a bit of a bad game, you know that the next game's just around the corner and you can turn things around very quickly. But when you're in form, the momentum's going. So the hard thing there is to keep the momentum going and don't get lazy or complacent with it when you're playing so many games. I think you're an international cricketer. You're a first-class cricketer. Um, I think the important thing for the development of the game in India and Australia and England is to have as many international players having the ability to go back and play state cricket as much as possible. Especially if you're a batsman. If you're batting out in the middle, the more you bat out in the middle, the more confident you are. If you have a break, get in the nets, then all of a sudden that first ball, you can be sharper, but also you've got to try and regain that confidence as well. So there's a bit of a thing where there's times where it warrants a break. If the player's been playing 11 months of the year and hasn't had has a break, well, you got to give him a little bit of a break to freshen up. But then there's a time where there's opportunities for those international players to play state cricket and put back in. You've got to utilise those. When I was coming through the ranks, we had test players come back to play first class cricket. But I remember Jeff Marsh, who was the Australian vice captain, the father of Mitchell and Shaw Marsh. He played about 2 or 3 games of the next level down. That's our first grade system. So you've got Test, Shield, first grade. He played 3 games, and I opened the batting with him in those 3 games. So back when I was coming through, you were actually playing grade cricket, playing with your heroes. I'll go back to the great Bishan Beatty, who played, who came over and toured and played a country against our WA Country 11, which was sensational because you're taking the game out to grassroots. So when I say Country 11, that would be like you're in Bangalore. You'd go maybe to Mysore. So Bangalore, there's Mysore in Karnataka. Probably even a smaller town than that. You'd take the game out there and play a country team. So that's what it was like back then, and it was really good. But because of all the fixturing now, we don't get that. So for me, I think there's got to be time in the calendar where you go back and play first class cricket. But if you're not playing for your country, you've got to be going back and playing first class cricket. And with IRE, you can't be just going off and training with your franchise, as I've heard rumours that's happened.
Yeah.
You've got to be going back to your state team. So yeah, that's probably the answer to my question. If you're not playing international cricket, you're playing state cricket, unless you're someone like a Virat Kohli who just needs a break from the game because he's played so much and he needs to rejuvenate himself. I don't know if I answered that well enough, but I hopefully is there anything you want me to add on that, or what would you add to that as a spectator or as a fan?
I think what you said perfectly makes sense. Like, if we do get an opportunity to represent our state, maybe we should, because that's where we, started our career from. So why not go back and, improve your technique as well? So unless you're really overburdened mentally or have established yourselves, probably someone like a Virat Kohli who's been representing India constantly, or maybe some of the fast bowlers who need some rest for their bodies, I think they should definitely play in the domestic cricket as well. So
Yeah. I think you brought up fast bowlers there. Fast bowlers are a bit of a different kettle of fish, and I've always harped on this. They are a protected species, and you got to make sure that you do look after them. So they probably deserve more rest than others, but to keep them playing more games, probably train less, if you know what I mean. So if you're going to take a break on the training product rather than than playing an actual match.
yeah, that makes
Yeah,
perfect sense as well. So
yeah.
yeah, so moving on to my next question, like, do you think BCCI is going a bit too hard in getting youngsters into the main Indian team, especially with the likes of Pujaras and Bhuvis still doing quite well in domestic cricket? I mean, there are youngsters like Gill who have actually managed to establish themselves, but with a lot of big tournaments coming up, should India go back to some of these stalwarts again?
Um, it's a that's a real difficult question. You're just beating England on your home soil. And the likes of Gill and Jaswell have stood up. You look at Patidar coming in that middle order. Sarfaraz Khan did well in one innings. It's pressure situations when the wicket's conducive to spin bowling. So for me, I'd like to see more opportunity for the youngsters that are coming through. I think those particular players have had a very good run. I think Pujara is one that I would have liked to see him play a lot more Test cricket, the way that he went about it. But I think the game's changed. We've got the World Test Championship. You've got to win Test matches if you want to get to the final. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more at stake now. So having that player that can bat those long innings for a long period of time sometimes dents that opportunity, especially when you go away from the subcontinent and come over to the wickets of Australia or South Africa, where there's a chance of more chance of a draw. I think you've got to have more aggressive players in that aspect. So the likes of Pujara, I think that role is slowly getting driven out of the game. But that's the thing for these youngsters. They're going to be concentrating more on the short form of the game, or play a lot more short form of the game than what Pujara did. So they've got that more aggressive style about them. But you looked at Gill the other day with his 50. You looked at Jural getting over the line in a pressure situation. I think Jurel made a 30-odd and Gill made 50
Yeah.
in that second innings when
Yes.
wickets were tumbling around. Now, that shows me that they both have good mindsets. They both have the ability to get through those tough periods. That's Jurel and Gill. And then I look at Gill when India beat Australia in that test match down here in Queensland. Remember how they saved the test in against Australia in Sydney before they went out to Queensland, and Tim Payne was going to Ashwin, we're going to get you up in Queensland if you don't, if we don't get you here. And that was a driving force of it. And India went up there, and Gill really shone under pressure, taking on the Australian bowlers, and he played a more aggressive style and got that 90 and really put Australia under pressure. And all of a sudden, that comment from Tim Payne in Sydney created extra pressure for Australia because, hang on, this is our turf. We're behind the 8 ball here. And all of a sudden, Australia were kind of fighting against their home turf. So basically, they're going through their front door of their house, not knowing what their home actually looks like, in a sense, because Gill had turned the tide around and put the pressure back on Australia. I hope that's a good analogy. So for me, I just think you've got to stick with these youngsters moving forward. You've got Rowett there. You've got Virat Kohli to come back in the team. You've got two extremely experienced players there. And take these youngsters over to around the world and really have those two batting around them where they can teach them out in the middle of how to apply themselves to bat in different regions and on different wickets. So for me, I think you've got a really good balance there when Virat Kohli comes in and bats out 4. So you've got Rowett having the ability to bat with the top 2, and then Virat Kohli having the ability to bat with a Patidar or a Sarfaraz Khan out 5 and 6. So I really think it's time for India to move on to the next generation. It's a good question, and in saying that, it's really tough on the likes of Rahul and Pujara, and even Rahane for that matter. It's really tough, but sometimes you've got to make those tough decisions to move on. It's a bit like New Zealand with Wagner. There's a lot of comment there. Williamson came out and said it's not a forced retirement. Well, it basically is when you're saying you're not playing against Australia when you've had so much success against one of the best batsmen in the world, Steve Smith, and he had something different, that left arm ability. You're virtually saying, right, you're done and dusted. And if you look at his stats over the last 2 years, that's probably where that's gone to with Wagner. I think he's a little bit too long on the tooth. Do you know what that means? That's Australian slang, long on the tooth.
Not really.
So when I say long in the tooth, that means he's getting a little old. And when I say old, for what he does, bowling short pitch bowling all the time, where he's more aggressive than the other New Zealand bowlers, that's pretty tough on an older body. So I think the coaches are reading that. Okay, yep, next question.
Okay, so yeah, the next question is particularly to you. Like, you've played cricket all over the world. So if there's one stadium you would love to go back and bowl again, where would it be? Maybe for the sake of the conditions or just for the atmosphere the crowd creates?
That's a very good question. I've only played one test match in India. That was in '96. I'd only just started bowling the left arm leg spin there. And if I wanted to go back and have an opportunity to play again on a venue, it would be Delhi. And I'd want Virender Sehwag to be playing in that test match. As well as Sachin Tendulkar, obviously, but Virender Sehwag on his home turf out Delhi, where I played my first test match. And if I had the mindset and the skill set of what it was like when I was in my 40s playing all the T20 leagues, I would have liked to have had that opportunity on that ground against an Indian team, especially with Sehwag in it, because Sehwag was one of the more daunting batsmen to play against, in a sense, with his aggression, the way he put pressure on you. And it wasn't until one of the latter games in T20 where the pressure that he applied to me didn't bother me mentally, if you know what I mean. So he was one of three batsmen that really put a lot of pressure on me the way I went about it out in the middle. So that's probably really where that is. That's a great question. That is a really great question because it really makes you think, and I love it. So I'll reverse the question. Where would you like me to play in a game?
Okay. Oh, would be a tough ask, but maybe Chinnaswamy because that's the best bet I have of actually getting to see you play live.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then maybe I would say I would want you to play on a track which does not offer much assistance to a spinner, just to see how make it as difficult for you as possible and see how you would fare in such a condition.
Well, I'll throw this back at you. I'd rather play on a spinning low track because that's where I'd have more trouble because I grew up here at the Wacker with a breeze coming over. So I'm bowling into the breeze and it's coming across to help the drift go away from the batsman. But I had more overspin and I had extra bounce there. So I really thrived on wickets that had extra bounce. So for me, with my skill set, the biggest challenge was probably on the low turning wickets. So that's probably why I'd like to go back to India. The other thing with it is I started out as a batsman. I would really love that opportunity again to bat in that same test match in Delhi, where I got out to Kumble in the first innings for 1, I think it was, and then the second innings for 4, and both times caught short leg, same shot. But I'd like to be able to go there and have that moment again with the bat, because it's just something when you've come through all the ranks playing as a batsman, and then you get there and you're batting at number 8. And you don't deliver. So that's an interesting one. It's a really, really good a good question. I don't really like talking about that in my career as much unless there's an example there. But to go back in history where you've just asked that question, that's a different question. I really enjoyed that question. Thank you very much for that. You might have another couple of questions. Okay, is there anyone on that's throwing through a question that we can get up there now? I've just seen Nahal's there. Oh, there we go. Rick Manjabadar. How do you say that, Roland? Rick?
Oh, it's Majumdar.
Majumdar. Thanks very much, Rick Majumdar, for joining us. Hi, Hoggy. I want to know that how Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood are so much consistent with no injury concerns. Our Indian bowlers have to learn from them. This is a very interesting question, actually, Rick. What do you think of this question, Roland, before I answer it?
Yeah,
What would
that
you say?
definitely is a really good question. I mean, Indian bowlers are actually known for injuries. Even our core group, say Bumrah, Siraj, Shami, they're having a lot of injury concerns. I mean, I guess it's the nature which they have been brought up, like right from their grassroots level, in the training which the Australians undergo. I think that's what helps them to, be more resistant towards injuries in the international career as well.
Yep, that's a very good point. I think Josh Hazlewood's had his injuries over the last couple of years. Pat Cummins, I think he spent 2.5 years out of the game where they were really working on his body and working on his action because he did have problems there early on. And Pattinson, another fast bowler that we had, was of a similar nature, but they really invested in Pat Cummins. I think probably because Pat Cummins had more all-round ability than Pattinson, so they spent more money on Pat. So they've really had their injury concerns throughout their career. It's just about the biomechanical science that we have over here. It's still evolving, but the science up until these three guys came on, they knew what was most likely to work for them to keep them on the park. And it's been really good that they've been able to stay on the park for longevity. But while this is happening, they're still working on it because they've had problems with Josh Hazlewood. But the other thing is too, we've been able to chop and change with our bowlers to give these three a rest. These three haven't played much IPL. They've been willing to pull out of the IPL tournament to have longevity in their international career as well. You flip over to the Indian bowlers; they play through the IPL, and then all of a sudden they go into a Test match. I think there was one IPL where they went from the IPL over to England and they played in the World Test Championship final.
Yep.
Whereas New Zealand had been over there and played a couple of games. So that puts pressure from going from a power game to an endurance game. And that's the great thing about our game with three different formats. It really shows the endurance of these players and also the power game as well. So it gives them an opportunity to show their athletic ability all round. But I also think you've got to have a bit of a look at the background of where these particular players have come from. Have they had the fortune of the food that we've been able to have access to over here in Australia, where we're able to build our bodies a bit quicker, and also what we've been eating throughout our whole life has helped our bodies define to be able to be as athletic as they are. Whereas India, you've got so much travel to get to grounds as well. Well, that's the other thing as well. So it's not just about food, but it's also about the conditions that people grow up in. We don't have as hectic traffic here in Australia as you do over in India as well. So we don't have to sit in the car to go to training and so forth as much as well. So there's different dynamics on what puts pressure on the actual bodies of these particular players, and that's coming from a junior level all the way up to the senior level. So all that hardship through that junior level makes it harder at the senior level to make sure the body's right for to operate at such a high level. And that is a great question, and it's so hard to answer without the full science there. But I think India are doing a really good job about it. And on my YouTube channel, I did an interview with John Gloucester, who was the physio for India for a long period of time. He lives in Mumbai and is part of the Rajasthan Royals. He is working in this particular space day in, day out, and his research is improving the quality or the quality or hopefully the longevity of fast bowlers and the performance of fast bowlers in the next generation. But I think the depth of Indian bowlers right now is up there with Australian bowlers, and with the depth that you've got, you're able to chop and change, and that good depth is able to sort of help rotate the bowlers so they've got that longevity. Rick, that is such a great question, and I could probably talk about that for another hour and a half, because I really enjoy that type of that type of question. Okay, we've got another question there. Deepak Gerard, who is the better spin, Ash or Lion? Roland, I'll let you go first.
Okay, this is a very tough one, I guess. I'm slightly inclined towards Lion here just because of the conditions he plays for. I mean, plays in, and he's done well in almost every country that he's played in. Ashwin is probably the best in India. I don't think there's anyone better than him, and he's provided a lot of depth in the batting as well. So, as a player for the whole team, I think it's Ashwin. But if you see purely as a spinner, I think I would be inclined towards Lion.
It's a tough question. Very tough question. One thing that I like about both players is Ashwin really struggled in England and Australia. He went over to England to play county cricket to learn the conditions over there, to improve, to grow his game. Nathan Lyon, very similar when you go to the subcontinent. I remember when I retired in 2008, I did a week's coaching with spinners up in the Centre of Excellence. There was probably about 4 or 5 coaches up there. So and at the end of that week, we had 10 spinners that we had to adjudicate who was our best spinner, who was the 10th spinner on that list. I had Lyon out 1 for Australian England conditions, and I had Lyon in the bottom half when it went to the subcontinent. And now I would have Lyon up the list. The only player that I'd take to the subcontinent in front of Lyon over the last 10 years would be Stephen O'Keefe, the left arm off spinner. And I'd even think about a guy called Michael Beer as well, who was very similar to O'Keefe. Those two particular bowlers, left armers, bowling turning the ball away from the right hander, would have been ideal over there. You brought up a great point. Lyon, the conditions that he bowls on aren't the same as Ashwin, aren't conducive to spin. And I just think with what I've seen over here in Australia, Nathan Lyon probably is as good as Shane Warne, just with the way that he's able to just control the game. And you know, I really can't determine who's the better bowler between the two. Stats don't tell the full story. But if I was looking at it and I had to pick one of them in my team, I'd have to go with Ashwin because he also adds more with the bat. And he's probably got a little bit more variety with the ball, where he may, on all conditions, have that ability to have a higher strike rate than what Lyon does. That's the only reason. Otherwise, both are very, very similar in my rankings. Deepak, that is a very, very good question. Next question. Have you got another question, Roland, while we're waiting for the next one to come up?
No, we
Oh,
can
here
go
we
to
go.
the next.
Yeah. Austin Dacuna. How you going, Austin? Hey, Hoggy. Hey, Roland. How are you, bro? Hey, how you going, Roland? You got to answer that one. How you going?
Hey, Austin, I'm doing good. How are you? Hope you're doing good as well.
Yeah. He knows you, does he?
Yeah, we were schoolmates, so.
Schoolmates. Awesome. Question to both of you. What new role do you see MS Dhoni playing for CSK this year? Mentor or opener? I'm going to go to you, Roland.
Yeah, he did tweet something saying he would be coming up in a new role, but I don't see him going up as an opener. Even though I'm actually excited to see him as an opener, but we have Rachin Ravindra there, we have Rutraj Gaikwad. I don't think Dhoni should be opening, but and mentor, I think he's always been a mentor for any team he's been part of. So honestly, I don't think he'll be taking both those roles, but yeah, I definitely love to see him as an opener though.
All right. I might throw in there bowler. I reckon you throw the gloves away and just say, right, I'm good out keeping. I'm one of the best lower order batsmen you've ever seen. Here's what I've got to dish up with the ball. And he'll probably do well with the ball. But no, on a serious note, I reckon with Dhoni, I reckon there might be a little bit of a coaching role there as well. So we'll have to watch that space. What other keepers have you got down there? What are the keepers out Chennai that are from Indian origin? I can't think off the top of my head. We're not in IPL mode at the moment. We're in Test cricket mode.
Uh, I think there are only some domestic Indian cricketers who aren't established yet. But I mean, there was Devon Conway, but I think he's injured, so I don't think he would be part of the majority of the season. So
Yeah, because there could be an opportunity where there might be a young Indian keeper there that MS Dhoni might be thinking, right, well, he's got some ability. He's got the goods. I might just step aside and let him go out there and just sit there with Damien Fleming and not Damien Fleming, Stephen Fleming. Damien Fleming's the Australian swing bowler. Stephen Fleming, and just take on a coaching role as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch this space. Well, hopefully he gets out of the. Hopefully he hasn't been spending too much time in the veggie garden, and just giving himself a bit of time to get out of the veggie garden that he's got up there in Ranchi and go to the nets and just work on his game, because I
won't
really
be
want to see him finish.
surprising if he goes away from keeping, because he did have issues with his knee last year around as well. So
There you go. So where would you put him in the field? I've never seen him throw a ball.
has to be
I have
mid-off
seen
or
him throw
somewhere
one or two.
close to the bowler. That's it.
Yeah. It'll be. I reckon that would be hard for him to field out short cover or short mid wicket. Those hands. I need the gloves back. I think he'd rather put pressure on his knee than have his hands being hit out in the covers with the way that guys power away at the moment. Okay, Austin, thanks very much for joining us. Now get back to your studies, okay? I know you're studying engineering, all right? And you've got a big year ahead of you. So make sure you sort that resume out, young Austin. Next question, please, AK. Nahal. Here we go, Nahal. Good to see you back again. Do you think it's wise choice to play Smith as opener in tests? Roland, you can quickly answer that one. And he was unbeatable at number 4 as opener. He isn't the same Smith we know. If he isn't suitable, who else do you think should play as opener? Do you think it's wise to have Smith as opener, Roland?
I mean, I actually was not, comfortable with the fact that Smith is opening because he was amazing at number 4, and I feel he hasn't, established himself as an opener as of now. But the thing is, now the number 4 spot is taken by Cameron Green, and he's not getting it back from Green for sure. So maybe he needs to continue as an opener for some time at least, and maybe rejig with Labuschagne as well. If not, Steve Smith maybe go to Cameron Bancroft because I know he's doing really well in the domestic uh, circuit, and maybe give him another chance with the Australian team as well.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. They've also got Renshaw in the background as well. Renshaw's been doing extremely well. He's played a couple of test matches over his time. I still think Steve Smith has got to be opener because he's moving to the twilight of his career. I think we've really got to look after Cameron Green and Mitchell Marsh and Travis Head in that middle order. I think we've got a very dominant middle order, so we need that stability up the top in the top 3. The only thing with Steve Smith, I think opening the batting, I think it's having a bit of an effect on Marnus Labuschagne because Marnus is used to him coming after him, but watching Steve Smith with all his intricacies and knowing Marnus Labuschagne is a big thinker of the game, I think sometimes when Steve Smith's moving around like he does, I think that's affecting the thinking process of Marnus Labuschagne, who's watching to come in next. I think he's starting to think about his technique rather than what he's got to do out in the field of play. So for me, Marnus has got to look away from the game when Steve Smith is batting and just focus on what he does best and go back to his pre-innings routine when he sits down and what he was doing watching David Warner and Usman Khawaja do their business. But
Do you fancy Marnus as an opener?
no. Oh, I reckon that's actually a good question. I don't know why I said no straight away. Got to slow down, Brad, and think about that question. I think Marnus could open. Would you put Steve Smith at number 3, as you said? Look, you could do that, but you don't want to jig it too much at this stage. And I think Steve Smith wanted to open the batting. He wanted something new, so I think stick with that for a while now. But it's a huge risk, isn't it? It's a huge risk on Steve Smith's part. And that's the thing in life. Sometimes you've got to go outside your comfort zone and take that risk, no matter what you do. So Austin did engineering, didn't he? Austin, your friend, was he an
Yep.
engineer? Yeah.
Not exactly. He's not engineering.
He's doing something else.
Yeah, he's doing a degree in commerce.
Degree in commerce, Righty-O. So and you're doing engineering, and those sometimes just to change things up and spark your life up. Sometimes you just got to take those risks and look for those new challenges because it's about growing. And Steve Smith needed that challenge to really revigorate his game and his love for batting. So for me, I'll stick with it where it is now. Great question, Nahal. And the 40-year-old virgin, I really love that. I hope you haven't put that photo or that thumbnail in there just to annoy me at the moment because I get called a 40-year-old virgin every now and then. Yeah, well, a lot while I was going through my 40s. Now I'm in my 50s. I don't as much. But VK, AK, have you got another question there, please, mate? Thank you very much. Walk with Sports. Hey, Hoggy, you have played in the IPL for KKR under Gutton Gambia captaincy. So, want to know from you that is he better as a player or as a captain? I'm a big KKR fan, and he has given us 2 trophies. Roland, I'll let you have a quick jump out this first.
Mm, Honestly, I don't think we can compare those two domains. They're two different things, like player and a captain. But yeah, if we do recall Gambhir's exploits in the IPL, what does come to our mind first is the captaincy that he led KKR to 2 titles. We don't really remember any innings of his specifically, so maybe slightly inclined towards the captain part.
Yep. Look, I really admired him as a player. I played a few games against him. There was a couple of years there where I was out the back end of my career, and he was just starting out. Tough competitor, tough competitor. Wants to win, um, and he's just got so much determination out there. And look, for me, I didn't think. I didn't think he was one that had all the ability. If you look at um, when you look at the ability, it was his drive that took him from there to the next level. There were a lot of players that I would have thought that had better ability than him, but didn't have the drive, didn't have that mindset to be able to handle the pressure. So for me, it was about handling the pressure. We used to get into him all the time. There was a little bit of verbal with Gambia, and he took it on as well. And you see that with him and Virat Kohli over the years as well when they're both on the field. Hopefully they've patched things up, because you want cricketers to be able to respect each other and get on, because we all love the game and we want it to move forward. But you still want to have that emotion out there, and I don't mind the emotion out in the middle. Just don't take it out the backyard. Just leave it out in the middle. But for me, he was a wonderful captain when I was down at KKR. Led from the front, and when you look at a leader, when you look at a captain, and he says something, he wouldn't say it unless he thought you couldn't do it. You could do it, and he would not ask you to do anything that he wouldn't do. If you understand what I mean. So he was a great leader. He knew the plans. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about his captaincy was when bowling, he was prepared to take risks and put the pressure on the opposition team, bring fielders close in on the bat, those catches. He was willing to bring 5 players in a ring when you're out of the power play. So those little risks, leading from the front to try and put extra pressure on a team when they're most vulnerable or out of vulnerable position, I just love that. He was always looking to win, and he was always looking at avenues just to make a slight change to try and put the momentum in his favour. He was a great captain. So I would say, in T20 cricket, he was a better captain than player. Test level, or in the longer form of the game, I think he was a better player than captain, if that makes sense. Yeah. Good question. Okay, have you got another one? Or no, Roland, have you got another one before we
I
surefire?
guess.
Oh, no, you're back again. Regarding Drill, do you think his position in Test cricket is at risk with Rishabh Pant but coming back, being fully fit? If Jurel is in good form, do you think Pant will play over Jurel as he is a senior player? Or I'm going to go to the Indian fan first, Roland. You answer that.
Firstly, we are actually not sure of how Pant's form is going to be when he comes back. With all due respect to him, he hasn't played cricket in a very long time now, so that is going to be a question. And especially the fact that keeping in Test cricket is kind of hard. With Pant's knee injury, I'm not sure if he'll be able to keep in Test cricket the moment he returns back as well. But then going the way the Indian team usually goes, when Karun Nair hit a triple century, he was dropped the next game because a senior player was coming back in. So yeah, probably Jurel will have to make way unless India decides to play him as a pure batter. So
Yeah, I think I don't think they would actually. I think they'll keep with Dural. I don't think they'll go back to Pant very or quickly. I think they'll make him go back and play a bit of first class cricket in the longer format to make sure that his body can withstand it, and make sure on a batting perspective he's still got the ability what he had before he had the accident. I really hope that Pant gets back there and plays Test cricket, but I think it will be a huge risk if they rush him in. So for me, I think he's got to go back to first class cricket, and I think Dural, he's got to have that opportunity as well. He's shone just recently, and I just think if you've got Sarfaraz Khan coming in above him, who's an aggressive batter, I just think Dural down that lower order. And you've also got Jadeja as well that can be aggressive around him as well. I just think you have that batsman that can solidify the innings around those two particular players and bat well with the tail as well. I think keep him in there. Though Pant can bat well with the tail as well, but I just think the longevity with Pant out at the moment, I think you really got to make sure that he is fully recovered from that accident before you play him in Test level. Otherwise, you could really do more damage to his body. Now, Roland, we're going to get to you, get to know the guest. Quickly, you're studying engineering. What type of engineering is it?
Computer science.
Computer science. Right. Why did you choose computer science?
I was more interested towards coding and programming and everything, so went with that.
Scoring?
Coding.
Coding. Yes, coding. Now, you played a little bit of cricket as well.
Yep.
So why did you leave cricket to concentrate on the studies? What made you do that?
I couldn't manage a lot of time, along with studies and everything. And I wouldn't say I've left cricket. I do play cricket regularly in my free time. But yeah, professional cricket just went a bit out of touch in practice, so couldn't keep going with that.
Is it because there'll be a lot of Indian youngsters that come through and want to play for India, but then they get to around about 15, 16. Is there a time there where most young Indian potential cricketers think, am I good enough, or should I go and really concentrate on my studies?
Yeah, probably. I think that's a very important time, and it's a important decision to make as well. So you realize your potential and you realize where you can actually reach with the sport. And if you feel you have the potential to, probably represent the country, then you should definitely go ahead with the sport. But if you feel you cannot reach to the highest level or maybe in the domestic circuit, then maybe you should stop playing it professionally or just play it probably at your college or school level. That's it.
Righty-O. That's a really, really good answer to that. Traveling around the world, where would you like to travel to?
That's a good question, but yeah, Lords will definitely be a stadium I'd want to visit, and I mean, I'd probably want to relive the experience of the India-Pakistan game at MCG again, which Virat Kohli played that gem of an innings in the World Cup.
Yep.
So such kind of an experience is what I would love to have.
Well, I still remember that Ralph bowling 145 or up around that range, good length ball, back over the head for 6. That's one of the best shots I've ever come across. It was just beautiful. But if you with your degree that you're doing and you're going to go out and make a career of engineering, where would you like to be able to work if you had an opportunity outside India?
Okay, that is a tricky question. I think that depends more on where my career path would take me. Uh,
Yep.
Probably somewhere in the United States or something like that, because IT is not that predominant in the cricket playing countries as much. But yeah, wherever I
Yeah.
am, I'd definitely love to play a bit of cricket and have some experience as well. So that would be great, I guess.
Yeah, right. No, that'd be fantastic. Now, I think I'd just like to thank you for coming on with us, Roland. It's absolutely brilliant that you've come on. You've been a great guest and some fantastic questions and also answers as well to some of the questions of other guests that have come on. Good luck with your studies, and you're in your final year this year. Hope it all goes well, and I hope you really have a successful career in computer sciences. I think that's fantastic. Technology is the way of the future, and you might be able to help me how to operate this thing, the old phone. But anyway, thanks very much, mate. Last question before we go. One thing you would change to cricket right now, or one thing that you think would be better for cricket?
Whoa, that's an interesting question.
I like to put you on the spot.
I mean, why to mend the wheel when it's not broken? I personally don't think any changes need to be made as of now, but uh, maybe make women's cricket more popular, like 5-day test matches for them as well. And also, with regard to the Indian domestic level, I'd say, especially the Ranji Trophy, which I personally do follow, give it a bit of more popularity or make it more well known, because a lot of the low Indian cricket fans, they follow the national team, but the domestic cricket is not at all, in reach to the people. They don't stream it live or anything. So maybe in that point of view. But in terms of the rules of the game, I don't think any changes need to be brought up as of now.
Right. That's a good question. That's a good point, actually. Do the BCCI have the coverage of first class cricket streamed through their website?
No, the live streaming does not take place for most of the games, but only some of the games, say the semis and the finals, and maybe some of the quarterfinals, it does take place for the
Right.
Ranji Trophy. Is what I am aware of.
Righty-O. I'm going to ring up the BCCI president and tell him exactly what you've just said there, because I think that's a great thing. You only need two cameras out out either end of the ground as well, and probably a big camera up the top that just has a view of the whole ground. You don't need anything special just to live stream it, because you just want to see how they bowl, they bat, and yeah, it gives you a bit of an idea of what's coming through. But Roland, thank you very much. It's 2:22. And I always have a bit of a problem when I look at my phone for the time. It's always 1:11 or 2:22. I always get stuck in three numbers. I don't know why it is. And sometimes it's 11:11 as well. So that's another number that pops up a lot. Do you have any numbers like that?
Not really, but yeah, the 11-11 thing is a bit common here as well.
Yeah. So great. Thanks very much for joining us. Hog out. Now, Roland, do you want to say goodbye to the viewers? Oh, you're gone.
Oh,
No
I'm
chance.
back.
There he is. He's coming back.
So yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. It was an amazing experience to be part of this, and yeah, it had great fun talking to you. So
Thanks very much, mate. And good luck to the Sunrisers Hyderabad, your team in this IPL. And we might have you back through the IPL as well down the track. And
definitely
hopefully
would
I've got
love
a
to.
few giveaways. But I can't really give away my KKR shirt or a Roadstar Royal shirt to a Sunrisers Hyderabad fan, can I? I'm going to have to find some teammates around here in Perth, whoever's played for them, to try and weasel out a little IPL shirt through the of Sunrise Hyderabad through the IPL. But anyway, you have a great time, mate, and good luck again with your studies. And
Thanks.
hope the family's well. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Namaste. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. And we'll be back live after the two test matches between India and Australia. Australia, New Zealand, and England, India. The start of next week. Hope your team has a bit of success, and hope the Milestone boys do well in their 100th test match. Thanks very much, guys. See you later. Namaste. G'day.